We're going to do a little video on our brown Bess kit project. There's been several people that have been asking some questions about it, and there's been some conversation. So pretty much everything is designed on this now except the lock. It's been a kind of a monumental task, but it's coming along well. We started with an original 1756 pattern brown Bess in very, very good condition, and we're using that as our model or our sample in order to model the brown Bess. So this isn't just some kind of AI image or cartoon image. It's actually a very, very detailed, three-dimensional, a 3D model of the stock. So before we make anything with CNC machines, we have to have a model. So this is basically digital data that's describing the shape of all these parts in high detail. So we model all these with CAD software, all these parts, the trigger guard and the butt plate and all the little bits, every screw even these screws are going to be custom made since they're kind of a special size. But what we do is we start with, like I said, an actual physical model, and then we scan that particular physical model, which in this case is a stock. And that scan data, you kind of see some of the scan data here. It's made up of a bunch of little triangles. That scan data allows us to have a roadmap on how to build these parts. So we don't use the scan data directly to do the CAD modeling, but it gives us kind of it's the equivalent of a picture when you're doing a 2D drawing. So that's what we start with, is a very, very good original, and do a scan of it. And then we start building all these different components. So we have a butt plate and trigger guard. Some of these are pretty complex, so it's been a very time-consuming project to get this modeled well. All these crazy free-form shapes, which it took me a number of years to learn how to do this. Pretty trigger here, you can see a very beautiful trigger. That's one thing I'm impressed with the brown Bess, is that even though it's a military gun, or at least the brown Bess of this period, even though it's a military gun, there's still quite a bit of grace and style with it. Now they kind of watered them down as time went on, especially into the 19th century, but this particular pattern, this 1756 pattern, still has some pretty nice style. See the nice apron around the tang, kind of fades out to nothing, and this is recreated in very, very high detail. There's nothing else on the market that even comes close to what we've done here. There's just a huge difference. It's actually going to be pretty amazing, I think. Big thumb piece. Like I said, the butt plate, the big giant wood screws. These are just monstrous wood screws. Side plate. So even details such as the screw slots, we're going to be trying to taper these screw slots. It's harder to machine them that way, but that originals had tapered slots, and all those little details add up to something in the end. So we haven't cut any corners on this project whatsoever. And unfortunately, what offerings are available, really people have cut lots of corners. The one that's most commonly available, the butt plate is way too small, probably at least a ½ inch too short, maybe more. So the butt stock is all undersized, and it's just, for somebody that really is focused and drilled down on detail, it's pretty comical, to be honest. So it's coming along quite well. We'll start on looking at some of the more parts here. You can see some of the barrel. It'll have these nice wedding bands at the end, and it actually fades out and will transition into the side. Rather than just being a round turn section, it kind of, you can see how it tapers out basically. So again, just all kinds of details that nobody would really notice, but make a difference in the end. And then moving forward, a nicely shaped barrel. It'll be probably 775 caliber, .775. And even all the lugs in the bayonet lug will be basically mortised into the into the barrel before it's brazed. So this will be silver brazed on for strength, and all the barrel lugs will be mortised into the barrel and soldered for the pins. These have great big pins, like 3/32 or even a little bit more perhaps diameter pins. So it's a big gun in general. The sling swivels aren't on here, but we'll get those modeled here soon. And here's some kind of neat details. You can see the muzzle cap, and then this kind of funnel-shaped entry pipe or first pipe that allows the rammer to kind of find its way with this funnel. See how the actual hole through the pipe is offset from this funnel, which is again just a copy of the original. Even the lugs and the shape of the lugs are rounded, and then they're even tapered. They're kind of wedge shaped, which I can show you. Let me turn those off. So if you look, you can see how the lugs are kind of wedge shaped, and that's how the originals are. And if you think about it, as you're putting the barrel into a stock, it would settle into place much easier if you have this taper where it finds the mortise first. And then there's the rammer. I'll turn the stock back on. There's the rammer that has the appropriate swell on the end, and it tapers down very gradually, which is going to be a challenge to make. But yeah, it's coming along very, very well. It's going to be, you know, a superb recreation of a 1756 pattern Bess. We'll include all the necessary, all the markings that you'd expect. So it'll have the proof marks, it'll have the lock markings. The lock will be marked with tower behind the cock. And then we're going to try to also have all the markings that are all over this original Bess. You know, maybe not every single marking, but the ones that are necessary and would be on standard on the Besses. So there's inspector's marks, and there's marks that denote what part goes with which particular gun, and so forth and so on. So it's going to be a real task to get all the markings and stamps, but we're going to try to make it just as superbly precise as we can.
Can you show me some of those marks?
Yeah, let's see if we can find some here. So you can see here's a side plate, and it has these slashes, and those probably refer to you know, just a gun and a number assigned to a batch of guns that are being assembled. So there's one there. There's on the lock, there's all kinds of marks. So this will just be tower, and we won't have a date on the back here, but we'll have all this crown business here. And here's a crown V, so I assume that's a view mark. So that'll be on there. Oops, and there's another, move on to the barrel, marking of 8 on it. Again, probably to denote an assembly mark, I guess, I don't know. Here's a 22. There's a number 2. So I'll sort out what all these mean. I know some people have studied that and can help understand what all these marks mean. You can see more markings up here. So there's I can't even tell what it is. There's a star and a 5, and something W, and then there's the crown P and crown V for the proof and view marks. So that's some of them, and then there's even more on the stock. There's a bunch of markings too. I think there's some markings on the guard, if I remember, on the inside of the bow maybe. I forget, yeah. Yeah, I can't see it right now on the bow, but there's some marking somewhere on this guard. I remember seeing it. So I don't understand, we have this X and we have 3 again here on this one. This one we have 7. I don't know what their system was.
I bet somebody out there will know.
Yeah. And there's a mark down here at the end of the trigger guard on the stock. And all these marks, or most of them, meant something. They had some kind of significance. Inspector's marks and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, there's lots of markings, and we'll try to recreate them. The ones that are important and significant, we'll work out where they should be and make stamps and stamp them in. The barrel will probably have the crown V and P machined in, because they're usually pretty deep, and stamps won't go in a modern barrel very well, so we'll probably machine those in. But all in all, the project is coming along very well, down to the home stretch with the lock, which is going to be a big task, but we're going to, again, not cut any corners. We're going to make it as close to the original as we can. Big, massive lock with great big strong springs, and it still has grace and styling. You know, some believe that the Brown Bess was developed by Andrew Dolop, who was a late 17th century, early 18th century English builder, and a lot of that 17th century feel is still kind of retained, even though this one was made in 1759.
Can I see the back side of it?
Sure.
Too?
Just big, massive thing. And again, we won't cut any corners like oftentimes people do. You know, it'll just be made as precisely as possible into the original standards. And that's kind of the summary. If you have any questions, just let us know. Still work to be done on it. No estimated date when it'll be available. There's still quite a bit of work. Got to model the lock, and then we have to figure out how to make all these parts. So, which isn't an easy task. Some of these parts are complex and difficult to make. Thanks.